Cut players, surprise comebacks, and a huge game against the Browns. This week's been crazy for the Broncos. Oh, and here's a fun one. Did you know the Broncos have some pretty wild Thanksgiving history? There's a lot to catch up on, from roster moves to big player returns, and of course, the showdown coming up on Monday night. Let's dive in. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. If you've been following the Broncos roster decisions over the past week, you might be familiar with Calvin Throckmorton. He has been experiencing several roster changes recently. After being promoted from the practice squad to the active roster on November 1st, 2024, he was waived on November 26th to make room for other returning players. The following day, November 27th, Throckmorton rejoined the Broncos by signing back onto the practice squad. It may look weird, but this is the kind of business the NFL is all about. Throckmorton has been on the team's active list only for slightly more than a month now, since November 1st, and this was after their starting center, Luke Wattenberg, was ruled out of the match due to an ankle injury. However, as we head into Week 13, the Broncos roster is seeing some changes because in many cases, those players who served their time on injured reserve or PUP list are finally activated to play. The Broncos are one of those teams that seems to go through constant roster changes this year. But with Throckmorton, the team has options and versatility, especially as they head into the last few games of the season. Let's discuss other changes to the roster as the Broncos look forward to the next big match. The team is getting healthy at the right time because we are witnessing some of their best players coming back. First up, second-year linebacker Drew Sanders, who suffered a torn Achilles tendon during the team's offseason program in April 2024. Following successful surgery, his recovery was projected to take 6 to 9 months, sidelining him for a significant portion of the season. On November 26, 2024, Sanders was activated from the physically unable to perform list, marking a significant step in his return to play. Sanders' return is timely, especially considering the team's recent roster adjustments and the need for depth in the linebacker position. His versatility, having played both inside and outside linebacker roles, will be a valuable asset to the defensive schemes moving forward. And talking about the Broncos that are playing with the Cleveland Browns in a few days, everyone on the deck is important. As we know, defensive coordinator Vance Joseph will be counting on every given player on the field to assist in containing the dreaded run options for the Browns employ as the heart of their game strategy. Under Joseph's leadership, the Broncos' defense has shown significant improvement. Notably, the unit has been instrumental in the team's recent winning streak, contributing key turnovers in multiple games. And that's not all, folks. Another key roster-related developmental is that of wide receiver Josh Reynolds, who was sidelined since Week 5 due to a fractured finger. He returned to practice on November 13th, participating fully in sessions leading up to Week 11. Despite this progress, Reynolds was not activated from injured reserve for Week 11 against the Atlanta Falcons. He continued to practice fully before Week 12, but remained inactive for the game against the Las Vegas Raiders. He is fully recovered now and available for the next game, although his status is still pending activation from injured reserve. But if he is activated, he can be a lift to the Broncos that need it for their receiving core heading into this season. The wide receiver group may have had moments of brilliance, but having a dependable receiver like Reynolds on the side can be more beneficial. Now, here's where it gets tricky for the Broncos. They're running out of room on their active roster, which makes things complicated for Kwon Alexander and Zach Cunningham. These guys have been solid on the practice squad and have stepped up when needed. But the problem is, NFL rules only allow practice squad players to be temporarily elevated a few times each season, probably 3 times. Both hit that limit, so now the Broncos have a decision to make. They either stay on the practice squad or get permanently added to the 53-man roster. With how well they've been performing, there's a good chance one of them could be moved up soon to help the team. It could happen as early as before the next game against the Browns, but that will depend on how the team makes their final decision. The Denver Broncos are currently holding a 7-5 record, positioning them as the 7th and final seed in the AFC playoff standings. Their chances of making the playoffs are estimated at approximately 70%. So every win is an opportunity to make a playoff push. Denver's defense has been good all season, and with the return of Sanders, Alexander, and Cunningham, the Broncos have so many choices heading into the game against Cleveland. Okay, now let's talk about the fun part. Thanksgiving Day. The Broncos have played in 11 Thanksgiving Day games throughout their history. Only 7 teams have previously played on Thanksgiving Day more often than the Broncos. The Denver Broncos Thanksgiving game stats now stand at 4-7, and the last time the Broncos faced a Thanksgiving matchup was way back in 2009 on November 26. In that game, Denver played and dominated the New York Giants, 26-6 on the home ground in Vesco Field. Barely did any individual outshine the other, but that game pulled a team effort in 2009. Noshan Moreno and Karel Buckhalter shared time as running backs, accounting for rushing for 139 yards, carrying the ball 39 times, and scoring a touchdown, and Matt Prater converted 4 field goals to compensate the Broncos for the win. But it wasn't only the offense that was seen as the decisive factor. Denver defenders continued to shine. They knocked down Manning 3 times. In my opinion, the Broncos were just the better side on that given Saturday. And now, as we look toward the future, it's clear that the Broncos are making strides to become a team that people will be watching not just on Thanksgiving, but all year long. It's kind of wild to think about the gap since their last Thanksgiving game, but with the way this team is building momentum, we can only hope that the Broncos will be back on that stage sooner rather than later. With their growing roster and potential playoff aspirations, the Broncos might be positioning themselves for a spot in the spotlight in the very near future. The Denver Broncos have had quite a week of action in terms of roster changes and getting ready for one very important game against the Cleveland Browns. It's all good news, and there is much to look forward to, and the Broncos country has been awakened. The team is getting set for the final push, and with the main players getting back into the mix, there is no telling just how far this team could go. Now, back to the roster discussion again. This year's rookie class has been seriously impressive. Guys like Jonah Ellis, Devon Vell, Riley Moss, Quinn Miners, and Jonathan Cooper aren't just there to fill spots on the roster, they're stepping up and making a real difference. It's not just the flashy first-round picks either. The Broncos are finding hidden gems in unexpected places, which says a lot about how sharp the team's scouting and drafting have been. When you look at what these rookies are already bringing to the table, it's clear the Broncos are building something special. Developing young talent like this is going to be huge as the team works toward long-term success. With smart draft choices and a focus on growth, it feels like the future is in really good hands. And speaking of the future, let's talk about Bo Nix. This guy has been on fire. His breakout performances have turned heads and put him on the map as one of the most exciting young quarterbacks in the NFL. Honestly, when you compare him to players like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, you can't help but think Bo Nix has what it takes to be right up there with the league's elite. What really makes Bo stand out isn't just his raw talent. He's got the whole package: skill, smarts, and leadership. You can't teach that kind of mindset. He's already shown he can handle the pressure of big moments, and it feels like it's only a matter of time before he's one of the top quarterbacks in the game. Broncos fans should definitely be pumped about what's coming with Bo Nix leading the charge. Of course, none of this would be possible without the leadership of coach Sean Payton. Payton's impact on this team has been undeniable, especially when it comes to evaluating talent. His bold confidence in quarterback assessments has reshaped the Broncos' future, and his belief in Bo Nix is a big part of that. All right, Broncos country, we've covered a lot today. Roster moves, player comebacks, playoff chances, and even some Thanksgiving history. Now, it's your turn. What do you think about all the roster shuffling this season? Should the Broncos move Alexander or Cunningham to the active roster, or keep them on the practice squad? And with Drew Sanders and Josh Reynolds making their return, how much of an impact do you think they'll have in Monday's game against the Browns? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more Broncos updates. As always, thanks for watching.